Introduction to critical perspectives. 4. The perspectives of the margins. A. Multiple choice questions. 1. Which of the following critical perspectives focuses on an equal relationship between privileged and disadvantaged groups? A. The gender perspective. B. The Marxist perspective. C. The perspective of the margins. D. The cultural perspective. 2. Speakers of minority languages belong to a marginalized group because A. They are small in number. B. They are dominated by speakers of majority languages. C. They do not have rich literature. D. They speak only their languages. 3. The term subaltern is associated with A. The German thinker Karl Marx. B. The Italian Marxist thinker Antonio Gramsci. C. The Russian linguist Roman Jakobson. D. The American linguist Noam Chomsky. 4. LGBTI people are marginalized in heterosexual society because A. Their sexual behavior does not fit heterosexual norms. B. They dress differently from heterosexual people. C. They are intellectually inferior to heterosexual people. D. They demand their right to education. 5. Which of the following statements is true? A. Homoerotic images express the author's suppressed same-sex desire. B. Homoerotic images show men's desire for women. C. Homoerotic images show women's desire for men. D. Homoerotic images suggest sexual attraction between heterosexuals. Extra MCQs. 1. What does the term LGBTI stand for? A. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and/or intersex. B. Language, gender, bisexuality, transcendence, identity. C. B. Language, gender, bisexuality, transcendence. D. B. Language, gender, bisexuality, identity. 2. How is a transgender person's gender identity different from their sex identity at birth? A. They have the same gender identity as their sex identity. B. They have a different sexual orientation from their gender identity. C. Their gender identity differs from their assigned sex at birth. D. They have a combination of both male and female gender identities. 3. What is the term used to describe people born with sex characteristics that do not fit typical definitions for male or female bodies? A. Intersex. B. Heterosexual. C. Homosexual. D. Queer. 4. According to the text, what is one consequence of discrimination and violence faced by LGBTI people? A. Freedom of expression. B. Feeling of insecurity. C. Equal participation in social life. D. Full acceptance in society. 5. What academic field studies the sexual behavior of those who do not fit heterosexual norms and expectations? A. Queer theory. B. Gender studies. C. Sexology. D. Human sexuality. 6. What does heterosexism mean? A. Discrimination or prejudice against homosexuals or other sexually different people. B. Discrimination or prejudice against heterosexual people. C. Promotion of equal rights for all sexual orientations. D. Acceptance of all forms of sexual behavior. 7. What is the term used to describe prejudice or dislike against non-heterosexual people? A. Homophobia. B. Heterophobia. C. Transphobia. D. Biphobia. 8. How are differently abled people defined from the perspective of the non-disabled majority? A. They are considered equal in abilities to the non-disabled. B. They are labeled as disabled because of their superior abilities. C. They are labeled as disabled because they fail to perform some activities the able-bodied can do. D. They are considered biologically superior to the non-disabled. 9. According to high humanity and inclusion, Approximately what percentage of the global population lives with some form of disability? A. 5%. B. 10%. C. 15%. D. 20%. 10. Why are people like Helen Keller, Christy Brown, and Jamak Kumari Gimmer mentioned in the text? A. They were pioneers in the field of disability studies. B. They were activists for differently abled rights. C. They proved that being differently abled is not equal to being disabled. D. They advocated for the medicalization of disabilities. 11. How are differently abled people often portrayed in literature, as per Samdev Banik's observation? A. As empowered individuals thriving in the center of society. B. As equals to non-disabled characters. C. As dependent individuals at the periphery of the world of the able-bodied. D. As characters who are not affected by their disabilities. 12. In Victor Hugo's novel, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, how is the character Quasimodo portrayed? A. As a hero celebrated by the townspeople. B. As a physically deformed monster shunned by society. C. As a wealthy and influential figure. D. As a respected member of the clergy. 13. According to Miles Beecham and Wendy V. Chung, how are disabled characters often portrayed in American literature? A. Positively and without any stereotypes. B. Negatively, often used to generate fear, pathos, and hatred. C. As powerful and independent individuals. D. As entirely unaffected by their disabilities. 14. What does the term intersex refer to? A. A person who identifies as both male and female. B. A person born with sex characteristics that do not fit typical definitions for male or female bodies. C. A person who identifies as neither male nor female. D. A person who identifies as a different gender than their assigned sex at birth. 15. What is the purpose of presenting examples like Helen Keller, Christy Brown, and Jamak Kumari Gimmer in the text? A. To advocate for medical intervention for differently abled individuals. B. To highlight their exceptional abilities in comparison to the able-bodied. C. To demonstrate that being differently abled is not equal to being disabled. D. To promote pity and sympathy for differently abled individuals. 16. What does the term subaltern refer to in critical thinking? A. A person of lower status in society. B. A person of higher status in society. C. A person with linguistic proficiency. D. A person with physical impairments. 17. What is one of the consequences of marginalization or exclusion mentioned in the text? A. Increased self-esteem and self-efficacy. B. Poverty and feelings of insecurity. C. Enhanced access to resources and opportunities. D. Freedom of choice in social life. 18. How does the subaltern perspective view power relations between dominant and dominated groups? A. It exposes how dominant groups are controlled by subaltern classes. B. It highlights the equal distribution of power between all social classes. C. It emphasizes the suppression of subaltern groups by dominant classes. D. It argues for the eradication of all social hierarchies. 19. According to the text, what is the primary focus of the subaltern perspective when reading a literary work? A. Analyzing the economic background of the characters. B. Exploring the unequal power relations between dominant and dominated groups. C. Examining the fashion choices of the characters. D. Identifying the dominant group's political beliefs. 20. What is one example of a marginalized group mentioned in the text? A. People with physically challenged persons. B. People who speak majority languages. C. People who adhere to dominant cultural norms. D. People who have access to equal opportunities in education. B. Short questions. 1. How does literature help to minimize the marginalization of people? Literature plays a crucial role in minimizing the marginalization of people by giving voice to the experiences and perspectives of marginalized communities. Through storytelling, literature humanizes characters from diverse backgrounds, allowing readers to empathize and understand the challenges they face. It sheds light on the intricacies of their lives, showcasing their strengths, resilience, and contributions to society. Moreover, literature challenges stereotypes and prejudices that lead to marginalization. By presenting nuanced and authentic portrayals of individuals from different walks of life, it breaks down misconceptions and fosters empathy. It encourages readers to see beyond superficial differences and recognize the shared humanity that binds us all. Literature also acts as a platform for marginalized writers to express themselves and advocate for their communities. It provides an avenue for voices that may otherwise go unheard, allowing for the articulation of unique perspectives and the highlighting of important social issues. In classrooms and discussions, literature can serve as a powerful tool for education and awareness raising. It prompts critical thinking and discussions about societal norms, biases, and the importance of inclusivity. Overall, literature serves as a catalyst for understanding, compassion, and positive social change, contributing significantly to the reduction of marginalization in society. 2. What is marginality? How are certain groups of people marginalized? Marginality refers to the state of being on the periphery or at the edges of a society or social group, often excluded or pushed to the margins. It implies a position of relative disadvantage or powerlessness within a larger societal context. Certain groups of people are marginalized based on various factors such as race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, disability, socioeconomic status, and more. Marginalization occurs when these groups face systemic barriers that limit their access to resources, opportunities, and participation in social, economic, and political spheres. Minority racial and ethnic groups can face discrimination, lack of representation, and unequal access to education, employment, and other opportunities due to prejudiced attitudes and structural inequalities. Women have historically been marginalized in many societies, facing limitations in areas such as education, career advancement, and political representation. Transgender and non-binary individuals may also experience marginalization due to societal norms. LGBTI individuals may face discrimination, exclusion, and legal barriers related to their sexual orientations. They can be marginalized in various aspects of life, including healthcare, housing, and employment. Those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds may experience marginalization due to limited access to quality education, healthcare, and job opportunities. They may also face stigmatization and lack of social mobility. People with disabilities may face physical, architectural, and attitudinal barriers that limit their full participation in society. This can include limited access to public spaces, education, and employment. Minority language speakers or individuals from specific cultural backgrounds may face exclusion or discrimination, particularly if their language or culture is not valued or recognized in the broader society. Marginalization is often the result of entrenched societal norms, biases, and structural inequalities. It leads to unequal distribution of resources and opportunities, hindering the affected group's ability to fully participate in and contribute to society. Addressing marginalization requires acknowledging and dismantling these systemic barriers to create a more inclusive and equitable society. 3. Who are subalterns? Write a paragraph about a subaltern character from any literary work you have read. Subalterns are individuals or groups who occupy marginalized and oppressed positions within a society, often due to factors such as class, caste, race, or gender. They are typically excluded from the centers of power and face social, economic, and political disadvantages. The term subaltern was popularized by Italian Marxist thinker Antonio Gramsci, and has been widely used in post-colonial and critical theory to describe those who are subjected to dominance and control by more privileged groups. One prominent example of a subaltern character in literature is Sally, the protagonist of Alice Walker's novel, The Color Purple. Sally is a young African-American woman in the early 20th century American South. She faces multiple layers of oppression, not only as a woman but also as a black woman living in a racially segregated and patriarchal society. Sally experiences physical and emotional abuse from her stepfather and husband, leading her to internalize feelings of powerlessness and low self-esteem. Through her letters to God and her intimate correspondence with her sister Nettie, Salai's narrative reveals her journey of self-discovery and resistance against the subjugation imposed upon her. Her story ultimately becomes a powerful testament to the resilience and strength of subaltern voices striving for liberation and agency in the face of adversity. 4. How are LGBTI people sexually different from heterosexual people? LGBTI, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and/or intersex individuals are not inherently sexually different from heterosexual people in terms of their biology or physical anatomy. The primary difference lies in the sexual orientations and gender identities that individuals within these groups may have. Lesbians are women who are primarily attracted to other women, while gay men are primarily attracted to other men. Their sexual orientations differ from those who identify as heterosexual, who are attracted to people of the opposite gender. Bisexual individuals are attracted to both men and women. This contrasts with people who identify as strictly heterosexual or homosexual, who are attracted exclusively to one gender. Transgender individuals may have a gender identity that differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. For example, a transgender woman is assigned male at birth but identifies and lives as a woman. This is a matter of gender identity, not sexual orientation. Intersex individuals are born with sex characteristics that do not fit typical definitions for male or female bodies. This is a biological variation and does not necessarily dictate one's sexual orientation. It's important to note that these terms refer to diverse experiences, and individual identities within the LGBTI spectrum can be nuanced and varied. Ultimately, being LGBTI relates to one's sexual orientation or gender identity, not a fundamental biological difference from heterosexual individuals. 5. How are LGBTI people discriminated and segregated by the heterosexual majority? LGBTI, lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and/or intersex individuals often face discrimination and segregation due to their sexual orientations or gender identities, which differ from the heterosexual majority. This discrimination manifests in various ways. In many regions, LGBTI individuals face legal barriers. This includes laws criminalizing same-sex relationships or marriages, denying them equal rights in areas like adoption, and lacking legal protections against discrimination. LGBTI individuals frequently encounter social prejudice and bias. This can lead to exclusion, isolation, and even ostracization from family, communities, or religious institutions. Many LGBTI individuals experience discrimination in employment settings. They may face unequal treatment, be denied job opportunities, or face harassment due to their sexual orientations or gender identities. LGBTI individuals may encounter difficulties accessing appropriate healthcare services, including transgender-specific care or mental health support. LGBTI individuals, especially youth, are at a higher risk of experiencing bullying and violence, both within educational institutions and in broader society. LGBTI individuals may face difficulties finding safe and inclusive housing due to discrimination by landlords or neighbors. In some regions, same-sex couples are denied the right to marry, which can result in a lack of legal recognition, benefits, and protections for their relationships. LGBTI individuals often experience subtle forms of discrimination or microaggressions, such as derogatory language, jokes, or assumptions about their identities. These forms of discrimination and segregation can lead to profound negative impacts on the mental health, self-esteem, and overall well-being of LGBTI individuals. It's important to work towards creating inclusive and accepting environments that affirm the rights and dignity of all individuals, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. 6. What are homoerotic images? How are they expressed in literary works? Give some examples. Homoerotic images are representations or depictions of same-sex desire, often conveying sexual or romantic attraction between individuals of the same gender. These images can be found in various forms of art and literature, and they serve to express and explore the complexities of homosexual or same-sex relationships. In literary works, homoeroticism is conveyed through vivid descriptions, suggestive language, and intimate interactions between characters of the same sex. For example, in William Shakespeare's sonnets, particularly in Sonnet 18, the speaker addresses a young man in a highly affectionate and passionate manner, suggestive of a romantic and possibly erotic relationship. Lines like, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" convey an intimate admiration that goes beyond conventional friendship. Another example is found in the works of the Greek poet Sappho, who wrote extensively about love and desire between women. Her poems, often addressing other women, express deep emotional connections and longing, exemplifying homoerotic themes. In contemporary literature, authors like James Baldwin explore homoeroticism through complex character relationships, such as in his novel, Giovanni's Room, which delves into the intimate connections between men in 1950s Paris. These examples demonstrate how homoerotic images in literature provide a space for the exploration and expression of same-sex desire, allowing for a deeper understanding of diverse forms of human intimacy and relationships. 7. Why is the marginal perspective important in the analysis of literary works? The marginal perspective is crucial in the analysis of literary works because it offers a lens through which to examine power dynamics, social hierarchies, and the experiences of marginalized or oppressed groups. It challenges dominant narratives and provides a platform for voices that have historically been silenced or overlooked. This perspective highlights the asymmetrical relationships between privileged and disadvantaged groups, shedding light on issues of inequality, discrimination, and social injustice. By centering the experiences of marginalized characters or communities, the marginal perspective allows for a more comprehensive understanding of the human condition. It reveals the complexities of lived experiences, bringing to the forefront the challenges faced by those on the margins of society. Additionally, it prompts critical reflection on the ways in which literature reflects, perpetuates, or challenges societal norms and power structures. Ultimately, the marginal perspective fosters empathy, encourages inclusivity, and promotes social change. It urges readers and scholars to question established narratives and consider alternative viewpoints, contributing to a richer, more diverse literary discourse that reflects the multifaceted realities of human existence. 8. What are the misconceptions about people with disabilities? How do they suffer discrimination, exclusion, and disadvantages? Misconceptions about people with disabilities often stem from societal stereotypes and lack of understanding. Some common misconceptions include: one misconception is assuming that individuals with disabilities are inherently less capable or intelligent. This underestimation can lead to limited opportunities for education and employment. Another misconception is viewing people with disabilities through a lens of pity or seeing them as helpless. This can lead to patronizing attitudes and the denial of agency and independence. Assuming that all disabilities are the same, or that all individuals within a specific disability category have identical experiences is a misconception. Disabilities vary widely, and each person's experience is unique. Focusing solely on the limitations posed by a disability often leads to overlooking the many strengths, talents, and abilities that individuals with disabilities possess. Treating disability as a tragic circumstance rather than a natural aspect of human diversity can lead to stigmatization and marginalization. These misconceptions contribute to discrimination, exclusion, and disadvantages faced by people with disabilities. They may experience barriers in education, employment, transportation, and access to public spaces. Negative attitudes can lead to social isolation, reduced opportunities, and a lack of representation in various aspects of society. It's crucial to challenge these misconceptions and promote a more inclusive and equitable environment for people with disabilities. Best of luck.